Rulers that don't like you prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Tonight is going to be exciting, actually. It was supposed to be Joe Atwill would be here with me, author of Caesar's Messiah, but last time we were supposed to meet, I had an excuse, and this time he has an excuse, so hopefully the third time's a charm, and he'll get back here as quick as possible. But I have a few things that I wanted to share with you guys, and whoever's listening so far, I just want you to know, all of a sudden, Restream decided to tell me that 0 people are ever watching. 0. So last time I know, just from the comments and the people in the chat even, that there was like at least 20 something at any given moment, and it was saying 0. And so I have no idea how many of you are out there. So it really helps me if you click like or subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, if you're on YouTube, or comment once in a while just to say hey, so I can kind of get a gauge, because YouTube and Restream are a bunch of fat, stupid liars, and so fuck them. But you can help me out by doing that, and then I'll have a better idea, and that is cool. So what's up? What's up, Philip? Nice to see you here. And I wanted to also tell you guys, before I share some exciting news and cool things, as usual, there's my site here. It's CoreySharman.com. That's my pen name, but you can also do rogueways.org and it'll take you there. And you can get all kinds of cool writings and fun art and stuff that I share with you guys. While you are there, you can also look into getting a tarot reading from me. I love doing tarot. I did another awesome reading today. It's one of my favorite things that I get to share with the world. So I would love to share that with you. If you want to grab a reading, that's there. You can also see some other cool random things. And while you're there, you can get some rogue gear, which I love myself. There's all kinds of cool stuff. I have a sweatshirt, a shirt, and a mug, but there's lots of fun stuff. The sweatshirts seem the most popular. I think that was a good choice, and I'm always looking to add more stuff too. So that is all there on my site. You can also support me best by going to Subscribestar / rogue ways, and this is the best way to support me, even at the $1 level. I have a $1 subscriber level and then a couple others where you get some more goodies, and this is the kind of support that helps the most. So if you could do that, that is awesome sauce. And other than that, you can always grab my book. It's the same link through PayPal that you would use to get a tarot reading, and that's Sine Curve of Aeons. And I'm going to tell you a little story about this book and the book that I just finished, which is the sequel to this book, which is somehow even better than this book. They're both rad, but they're totally different books. It's so weird. I'm going to tell you the story of this weirdness that brought these things into occurrence. If you listened to my show recently about tarot and my journey through it, you know how much of a wild sort of ride that was and how many crazy things happened along that ride. And this story is going to be similar. So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Oh, look. It is showing me that people are viewing tonight, so that's cool. Apparently you didn't hear. It'd be cool if you say what's up in the chat or hit like. And if you're watching on Facebook, I can never see your comments until afterwards. If you go to YouTube and find the Rogue Ways channel, you can watch there, and that is somewhere then I will see your comments if you comment there. Or if you're watching on DLive on the Rogue Ways channel, then I'll also see those comments. So that is the best way. If you are watching and you want some interaction, that's the best way to do that. So I feel like there's other things I was going to mention, guys. I showed you the rogue gear. The podcast is back. If you still haven't heard, you can listen on the podcast app from now on again. You may have seen my tab that I just showed you. That was my concealed handgun permit. I had one in Washington, and I moved to Colorado, and they don't have reciprocity. They don't acknowledge each other's concealed handgun permits. So I'm going to get one in Colorado as well. I hope. I had heard that it was hard to do, and that they don't really grant some, but then I saw all these things that said that they do. So I really don't know, but I'll go try it out and see. If it's one of the states that says you can and then takes your money and makes you fill out the shit and get your fingerprints done and then doesn't grant any anyways, then I'll be really angry that they just take people's money. But I'll just ask them. I think they'll tell me when I go ask them. So I will do that. So I guess I've babbled enough. Got some cool gifting going on in DLive. And I'm sorry again that Joe isn't here. Hopefully we can hook up and do that another time. That would be cool. So, this is the news. I finished my book. You may have noticed. This would be my 4th book now, right? Sine Curve was actually my 3rd book that I wrote. The first one being a book of poetry. The second one being a memoir about my time teaching on a Native American reservation. And then Sine Curve being my first novel. And then I just finished the sequel to this, like I said, and it's a ridiculously awesome story that ties together everything I've ever loved into one book. And so I'm going to tell you the story of these books and how they came about. And if you've listened to the show a bit, you've probably heard kind of bits and pieces of it, but I'm going to do a more in-depth sort of explanation of this. So Sine Curve, to start out, I am not a fiction author. I never intended to be a fictional author. In fact, I would listen to people describe writing fictional books and I would just think they were insanely genius. I was like, I cannot understand how you'd know in your head all these plot lines and all these moves and all of these things that can happen and perfectly come together in the end in this like beautiful way. And it just seemed insane to me. And so I just assumed that I would never write a book because that seemed far too difficult. Like I don't have that kind of a mind at all. I have a deep imagination and I'm a good writer, but I just don't have that. I just never saw that as being a possibility. But one day I was chilling and I just had this thought like, God, wouldn't it be fun to be able to read? And I don't even read that much fiction anymore. I did a lot as a child, like a ton as a child. And now I mostly read nonfiction. So there's that too. But I was having this moment where I was like, God, it'd be so fun to read this book about, and I'm not going to give you too much detail because then you'll know too much about the book, but basically about this certain like society and type of being and this whole planet would be like this. And it'd be like so cool to see how that would look and like what would kind of come about and would there even be conflict in a world like this? Because it's kind of like this golden age sort of time period. And the person I was with at the time, I was like, that doesn't really exist though. In the things that I'm not telling you in exactly this way that I know of. There's no book out there, a fictional book out there like that. And the person I was with was like, well, why don't you write one then? And I just was like, pfft. And then like instantly, like I'm not even joking, there was 3 books all of a sudden in my head. And it wasn't like all the details were there, but it was like 3, a whole trilogy and the concept of each book as an individual sort of journey and then how they intertwined. And it was just the conceptual framework. It was like a quick snapshot of each. It wasn't, like I said, all of the details or any understanding at all of like what would actually happen, but just this quick sort of conceptual framework of these 3 books like appeared in my head. And I was like, whoa, like I don't know if this is the first time that like real inspiration has ever struck me or whatever. But it struck me as something that I was like, I need to write this down really quick. Because I've, in my other writing, like especially with poetry and stuff, it's kind of like if it comes to you and you're having this like impulse and urge about it, then you have to kind of get it out, at least in a quick sketch to kind of like start to birth it, or else like it just like kind of goes away. And so I feel like this is actual inspiration or like an actual muse or however you want to think about this like thought form that I feel like it kind of like comes to you and it's like enticing. It's like, hey, do you like, I choose you, do you choose me? And if you don't like choose it, I think it's like, I don't know, is it offended or is it just like too like eager to be born and you're just like not on top of it or whatever it is, like it just goes if you don't grab it, And I feel like because I stopped and recognized like this is actually kind of a big fucking deal, like and like sketched it out, that's part of why it like stuck with me, because I didn't start right away. I was kind of in this like transition period in life, and I had just moved back to the country from the Middle East where I was living and teaching at private schools. I was teaching the like princes and princesses of Bahrain, which is its own fucking crazy story that we'll tell another time. And so yeah, I just had gotten back and I was just kind of resettling, and this like just happened one night, came to me, I sketched it out, and then life was like catching up with me, and so I just like it just sat in like a notebook for probably not more than like, I don't know, a handful of months, not too long. Because I also think if you don't like start on it in earnest quick enough, it also is going to kind of leave and float on in the ether, in the noosphere to like the next person who's possibly ready for it. And this is genuinely how I like think of creative ventures since this moment. I don't think that it came from me. I think it came from somewhere else. So, and I've heard, this is the other thing, I had heard authors talk like this before, and I was like, those people are schizophrenic. There's like a little schizophrenic, like enough to work, but like they're schizophrenic. Like they believe in shit that doesn't make sense, and they like, I don't know, I'd heard shit like this before, and I was just like, those people are crazy. And then now it was kind of happening to me. I didn't even really recognize it at first. I just knew that I had the ideas written down. So that same night, like literally the same night, and I did not connect these things in my head. This is just like, this thing happened, I wrote down the ideas, and then like some time went on, and then I was going to bed, and then this happened. I didn't think that they were connected. So I had an experience of a kind that I have sometimes, where like whatever you want to call it, it's like a vision or an interaction with aspects of reality that not everyone can see all the time. And again, I get super aware that lots of people could look at this and think that there's mental illness going on, and I would have too at one point, so I get it. But I had basically this entity come through my cupboard, and and at the time I was just like, what the fuck? Like, and I've learned since then that especially closets or doors, it's like things where we kind of expect there to be like a liminal space or like a boundary between like one thing and another thing, and these are spaces where these things like it's more easy for them to come through. So I imagine that's because our minds are expecting this to be a boundary, and therefore we know at a boundary that things can kind of change and cross over. And so I think some connection in our minds with how we view this is like some aspect of why these entities can use those places, but that's all philosophy for another day as well. Anyway, this entity came through, and it had horns, and I was concerned about that because I have been trained, like you all probably, and like most people in Western culture, that horned entities are evil and dark and bad and blah blah blah. And so I was like kind of scared, and I did the thing that I would normally do when an entity is kind of in my space and fucking with me, and I cast it away, and it went because it has to. But I could see as it went that it was kind of like looking at me like, you don't want me to go away, you fucking weirdo, but it went anyway. It did not bring Turkish delight. Turkish delights are delicious though, by the way. An actual turkey where you get Turkish delights are like, wow. And what's up, Lacey? Nice to see you. And Chris. Hi, Chris. Everything is connected. We are all connected. It's absolutely true, and that comes into this story too. And what's up, everyone else? If I haven't seen you yet, hey. Say hey in the comments and hit like. And yes, so horned entities, we're trained to think they're evil. Another moment that seemed disconnected, there's a few other things that were weird in this time, but my friend, very close friend, he was raised, very Christian, very traditional Christian sort of guy, and yet somehow he's very close friends with me, which, and if you listen to the last story, you probably think that I'm a bit Christian, and you could say that, but by no means what most Christians would think of as a Christian, and very non-traditional. And I don't go to church, but he invited me to go to church, and every once in a while it's like a nostalgia thing. Like when I was a child, I would go to church, and it was a safe, warm, happy place where they gave me cookies, and like everyone was super nice, and so I have very positive feelings about church, and so every once in a while I like to go. So when he invited me, I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. So I went to his church with him, and there's a female minister there, and she was pretty cool. I was not, you go to church, if you've gone to church, it's like there's often just kind of like a shitty like time where the preacher tells you shit that like doesn't matter, and I don't know, it's like uninspired and boring, and it's often like that. But I did not feel that way this time. First of all, I was like, oh, there's women like ministers or whatever, preachers or whatever we're supposed to call them. Like I didn't know that was, I guess I'm like, welcome to the 21st century or whatever. but I had never seen that before, so that was kind of cool. And then her, why don't I have the word for it? Her talking time was also cool. And she was talking about how we wouldn't even know good or evil if we saw it. She was explaining that, like, you know, we've been trained, like I was just saying, to see certain things as evil no matter what. Like if something has horns, we're supposed to hate it and fear it and think that it's a demon, and especially if it's like an entity that's not human. But at the same time, she pointed out, if you look at any description in the Bible of angels or angelic visitation, they're not described as like fluffy, happy, like love beams, like we're kind of trained again by like Hallmark and whatever. They're described as terrifying creatures. They're terrifying to behold. Sermon, thank you. Her sermon was rad. They're terrifying creatures to behold, and so she was just pointing out, like, if you see something and your instant reaction to it is to fear, you should fear either one. They're both like beings high, you know, above or outside of you at least, and like, you know, there could be a lot of risks in this interaction, no matter whether they're like good or evil, but you should at least not judge right away, because something that looks terrifying could be the best ally you've ever had, and something that looks very trustworthy could be the worst enemy you've ever had. In fact, wouldn't something evil that was trying to trick you want to look exactly like you'd expect, like the most beautiful and the most, or like childlike or something, you know, or sexy and seductive? Like in some way they'd try to like play on your expectations. Whereas this being I interacted with didn't give a fuck what I thought about it or what it looked like. So it made me think of that encounter, and I was like, fuck, maybe that wasn't like a negative entity that I just like saw and cast away immediately. Like maybe it was bringing good tidings or something. Like maybe I should have fucking taken a moment at least to like check in with myself and how I felt about it, rather than just reacting. So that was a good lesson. I swear this has to do with the book. So those are all things that happened. So then I moved, about a new house. I got kind of settled into this new place finally, after getting back from Bahrain and running away from the Middle East. And it was a beautiful space that I had bought. This was a little tiny shitty ass cabin. It was 470 square feet or something. It was tiny shitty cabin on this river, but it was gorgeous territory, like beautiful country. And this little tiny cabin looked right out of the bedroom window onto the river that ran through my property. And as shitty and horrifying as that little shack was, being able to sit in my bed and write and look out on this river was like pretty amazing. Really, really lucky, really beautiful property, and so cheap because it was in the middle of this dirt poor place with like crystal meth addiction all around, and we got broken into within like a week of living there. There's a lot of theft, and across the street was a level 3 sex offender like compound full of sex offenders, and up the street was a homeless encampment. So that's why it was very cheap, and so that's why I was able to get it and to live there. It's not because I'm special or rich. What's up, Chris? Nice to see you. Welcome. So I got to this place, this beautiful, beautiful place, and I committed to started to write this book. And again, never had planned on writing fiction, had no idea how to do it, had no plan, had a very loose concept of these 3 trilogy books, and I was just going to start with the first one, as you do. And so I sat down to write it. I was going to do my plan, and this works really well. If anyone wants to try this trick, I was like 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes minimum a day. Anybody can put 10 minutes towards anything a day. Like that's no time at all. And the trick of it is when you sit down and do your 10 minutes, it often then just naturally turns into half an hour, hour or longer. So it's a good trick. All right. So when I sit down to start writing this book, I have no idea how to actually write a book at all. And so sitting there with my computer and I'm like, I don't fucking know. It's like, I'll just start writing some shit. So I'm like, I mean, if it's like this and this, and at first I was trying to kind of think and plan, and then I was like, this is too much. And then I was like, fuck it. I'll just like write like this one scene that had kind of come to mind. Wherever that is in the book, I can just like, you know, rearrange it later kind of, but I'll just like start writing it. So what's up, Sue? Nice to see you. So I started writing, and I wrote what ended up actually being the first chapter is the prologue to the book. And it was like awesome. Like it drew me into the story. I was like, fuck, this is intense. Like I was like, what is this girl facing? And like, what the hell is happening to her world? And like, shit's crazy. Why is it crazy? Like, I didn't even know these answers when I'm the one writing it. But it was just like, if you were reading it, you know, you'd have all like the same questions. Like I had those questions. So I was like hooked on writing this book immediately. But again, I had like no plan. So like when I came back the next day, I'm like, hey, I gotta do 10 minutes. I was like, I guess I'll edit what I wrote. And so I went back and edited it. And then I was like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And so I just sat there and I started just like getting like another scene, like another random scene. And like in this time there was like a new character that come in and I was like, oh, who's this character? And so, you know, then I like had met this new character and so I wrote out that scene. And I started realizing like every time I went to sit down and write, I sort of had this like time where I would just sit there looking at the river by chance because that's just where I lived and what was in front of my window. But just kind of zoning out and like asking, you know, what happens now? Like what next? And that's how I wrote the book. It just came to me in like flashes during those times where I would sit there for a minute or 2 or 10 or however long, just kind of like zoning out almost in like a trance and just visualizing. And again, it's not like visualizing like I was like planning or plotting or like, okay, what if like this character went and did that? Like it was not like that. It was like emptiness that I was just waiting and then it would just like appear. It'd be like, this is now. And then I just start writing and sometimes I wouldn't even know why this was what was happening. I would just be like, I don't know, this is a scene. And again, I was just like, this could just like end up moving around in the book somewhere if it's not like the very next chapter or whatever. And it just came together that way. And so as I was writing, I was like astounding myself because I was like, I had no plan about anything that would happen in this book or how it would happen or with who or what the characters were or any of it. So, yeah, so that alone is a trip enough. That was a trippy process. You can make all sorts of arguments about this and you can say, you know, my subconscious had blotted it out and I was delving into my subconscious mind to like retrieve it back and put it into words or whatever. And maybe that's at least a good analogy, if nothing more. Or maybe like, I think this is a actually like fully formed idea that came to me as inspiration or from a muse or however you want to describe that. And then I was just lucky enough to be able to be in the place and the time and, you know, the skill level, but mostly the sitting there with it and like channeling it into reality. Nothing about it was automatic writing, like, at all. Nothing about it was like I was being like told or like heard a voice or something. It was all images. It was all just I would see it happening and translate it out. So, sorry, I have some notes here to remind myself because I forget shit and how it all came together. So yeah, as I started writing, it was like, I mean, sometimes I would literally be like angry at the characters. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, why are you doing this, you piece of shit? Or I'd be like angry at like the plot. I'm like, why is this happening to this person right now? This is like the least thing that you want. Cause I'm just like any reader who's reading a book. I'm like, I want certain things for the characters and those aren't always the things that happen. And, you know, and I'd like be telling people all this. I'd be like, how's fucking like character and da-da-da. And they'd be like, well, just change it. And I was like, I can't. You know, like I had this like internal understanding that like this was not my story to change and that I can't just do whatever I want with it because that's not the story because this is the story as it came to me and I have to write it. So, and then I also was like very impressed with how shit like, again, like came together later in the book. I was like, oh, that's why like way back then this shit was like that. It's because like, you know, like my mind was blown by my own book. By the shit that would come together that like I couldn't have even planned because I'm not that smart. Like I'm smart, but not like that. And so it was mind blowing how that would happen. So this whole process is blowing my mind. And the whole time I'm like, well, this is pretty fucking cool. I mean, it's fun if nothing else. And like, if other people ever want to read it, like that's a bonus. And so I just kept doing it. And there was a point, where this one character comes in that is pretty trippy And I'll just, I don't want to ruin shit for you guys, but I want you to understand the story. Basically, an entity comes forward at some point in the book, and it's pretty central to the storyline, and sort of like an etheric spiritual entity. And the way I see him when he comes through is like, he's got antlers, like horns, but they're more like antlers, like elk antlers or whatever. And he's got like a wolf pelt, or like, it's like he has a wolf face, but he's a human-ish being. And so he's somehow like wolf and human and elk all at once. And just like, almost like if you pictured something like kind of bringing like the earth and like trees together to like form a body, like just very like, like rich and deep and musky and sort of like primal, earthy sort of thing. And he pops up, and I'm like, well, that guy's cool. Like, he feels like this really positive being, and he does cool things in the story, and he's rad. So I'm like writing about him and whatever, and just like randomly, I don't even remember why or how, but just like browsing the internet or Facebook or like something, and I see like this equivalent of like a line drawing, but like of that guy, like a really primitive sort of drawing, but of him. And it kind of like strikes me. I'm like, that like looks like the character, kind of, like not really, but like kind of. And I'm just like curious, I click on it, and it's like some article, and I'm reading it, and it's about this like god of like the Celtic or people or whatever that, you know, a long time ago they worshipped, and he's like a nature god, and he like represents masculinity and this like cycles of, you know, life. And if you watched the Green Man episode that I did on Rogue Ways with a couple pretty fucking rad people, you've heard this part of the story before. So it ends up, being the green god, but I did not know that. And in this article, he's called Cernunnos. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think some people say Cernunnos. But either way, it's Cernunnos. And the shit that this god represents in this article, at least, and from what I've researched since then and learned since then, is all the same shit that like comes with this archetype when it comes into my story. And you like, I can't necessarily convince anyone that like I didn't know this before I wrote, but I didn't. So you just have to take my word for it. I had no idea. This character comes into the story, and then I see this. Then I get this confirmation, like this is an actual god or archetype. And like now I know it is because it came into my story. So I'm like, that guy came into the story because he's real, and because what he represents in the story and what he's doing in the story is like what he would do. Like that is what he was for. That's like his whole role in existence. What's up, Trey? Nice to see you. So like that's a fucking trip. Like that I didn't know that. And then it came into the story, and then it turns out to be like a real thing in real life. So this is like all blowing my mind. And I'm kind of like scared of the story now, because I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, it just came to me, and then I like go in, not like a trance, but like kind of like a trance-like thing before I like start writing every time. And then this guy comes in, and he's like the same guy. And then I remember that fucking entity back before that came through my pantry, cupboard or whatever, into my house, and he had horns. And you see where I'm going with this. So now I'm like, was that like him? Like probably, right? But I don't know, because I fucking banished him out of my house. I think he gets it though. He's cool. And I've had experiences with him since, and we're fine. So you don't have to worry about that if you're worrying about it. Any entity that would hold shit like that against you is not your friend, and they can fuck off, honestly, because you shouldn't just accept any random fucking being into your circle. Like that's a sacred place. But I'm going to pause. I'm going to say, what's up to, I think I got everybody but Sans Mimetics. Nice to see you here. Do a show with me. What do you think about a man's obsession with the truth and the systems-based approach to literally everything? I don't know, maybe. We'll see someday. Nice to see you either way, and who knows. Oh, thank you, Trey. Trey's like my biggest supporter. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. All right, so So as I'm realizing this horned deity named Cernunnos is actually a real deity, and that he represents all the same things that are in the book, and that character in the book looks just like him, basically. The wolf thing is like not necessarily connected, but who knows if that's just my own lens of how I view him or whatever. Just like the same fucking thing that's in the book. It's a real thing, and he really is connected with me, and he really is connected with this story, and in a deep way. It's almost like the whole story is like actually his story in a way. It's very, very, very fascinating. So I get back to I don't know what I was going to say, but I get done with the book. I get back to reality, I guess. I finish the book. I finish it within a year, which is pretty good for a novel, especially your first novel. And it's like 700 fucking pages. Like, I wrote a fucking tome. Like, it's crazy. And so, I had to do a lot of editing over time. I actually removed like hundreds of pages from it eventually, because I think when you're like just writing, if you're like me, like there's a lot of extra shit in there that no one needed to know, but that you like kind of saw, and so you like wrote it out, and it was just like, nah, it didn't need to be there. So I trimmed a lot out, but it was pretty long either way. And that book ended up being, drumroll, 33 chapters, which also tripped me out, because if you know anything about the world that we're living in and this, community of people, 33 is like the number. And it's like associated with negativity because of Freemasonry and whatever, but it's actually a beautiful number. It's an amazing number. It's a number of it's how many vertebrae you have in your spine, and it's the number of years that Jesus lived. Whether you think that's real or not, there's a reason it's 33 years. And it's that path from like your lowest vertebrae, and you work all the way up your nervous system, up and up and up. You're enlightening yourself the whole way until you get to your pineal gland, and you're enlightened and you're awakened master or whatever. So 33 is this amazingly powerful number, and it's a very magic number. 33 is a number I'm pretty obsessed with my whole life. Thank you, Sansomatics. I love that. Thank you. It's very nice. 3 has been my number of focus and obsession for me since I was very young. I've just talked recently with Michael Wan about this. If you are on my Subscribe Star, you can access our most recent video and hear more about it. Excuse me. And it's just that number, the Holy Trinity. There's 3. There's 3 of almost everything. There's like the electron, the neutron, the proton. There's like heaven, this realm, and hell. There's, I don't know, you could do it with anything. There's always 3 of everything. There's always 3. It's always in a trinity. And what I really love about 3 is that there's a duality, and the duality is 0 and 1, on or off, yes or no. And this is the illusion, and this is where we are, most of us right now in this reality. This is the duality. But the 3 is the union of those into one. And that's my obsession with 3, is that middle path. And I call it the middle path. And there's religions that call something the middle path too, and it's the same, but that's not where I got it. I got it from thinking about 3 and duality and the combination of 3. And I also love that in 3 is encoded the 4, which is the completion, but that's a story for another day as well. Mother, Maiden, Crone, yes, there's another trilogy. The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. There's a reason why everything's in a trilogy, and it's not to make us religious. It's to make us notice something that's true about our existence and our experience here. 3, 6, 9, yes, and they're all 3 based. So 33 chapters was kind of a big deal. And I could not have done that on purpose if I wanted to, because again, I'm not that smart. I'm really smart, but not in that way. I didn't plan the book. I couldn't have planned that, but it just was 33 chapters. Really weirdly, it just so happens that every chapter is about 10 pages. Some are 15, some are whatever. They're just always about 10 pages. Didn't plan it. Couldn't plan it if I tried. It's just seems to be a good length for a chapter, I guess. So, yeah. So that book was a trip. That's this book. Sine Curve of Aeons. Super good book. You can check it out. You can get it from me for $15, which is cheaper than you can get it from Amazon, because you'll pay them $15 plus shipping plus tax. But if you just PayPal me $15, I will ship it to you anywhere in the United States with an inscription on the inside, and probably a Rogueway sticker. I usually throw 1 or 2 of those in as well. So if you want to grab it, grab it. The triptych, yes. I have a poem called Triptych. The triptych is a beautiful art form, and there's a reason why they're really amazing as well. So that's the story of the first book. I just finished the sequel. That's the big news of the episode. And, oh, I'm not done. Okay. This image here, you see this guy. Let me just show you the actual image. You need to see it better than that. Here's the image. This guy, he pops up, and I mean, like, it's just like I see this art one day. I'm like just finished with the book, you know, and I see this fucking piece of art, and I'm like, what the fuck? Because, like, there's a scene in the book, and it's the scene where Cernunnos first comes into the book ever for the first time, and it basically looks exactly like this. This is exactly this is the scene. This person, this artist, painted a scene from my book as his painting. And get this, the fucking title of this masterpiece here is Transdimensional Emissary. And that is exactly what Cernunnos is. He's a transdimensional emissary. Especially in my book, he's a transdimensional emissary. So, like, it's not just the image is fucking amazing and is exactly from my book. It's also that the title of it is exactly what it is. And, you know, he's got the fucking horns and, like, it's just crazy. It tripped me out. So I was like, this is the cover. I don't even give a shit. I tried really hard to get this artist to agree to it. He never has returned any of my messages. I've tried for years. I always tell him, I'm like, I'm using this as the cover of my book. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. It's not a big deal. And I'll definitely stop doing it as soon as you say no. And if I ever get rich and famous, I will happily share a ton of money with you. He never answers. So I hope, like, karmically, that's all good. But I was just like, I can't not. Like, it's like he had made it, like, that was a new painting at that time. So, like, he made it right as I was also finishing the book. So it was like we both were, like, channeling this thing into reality at the same time. And it just seemed like amazing synchronistic to me. So so it is the cover, as you can see now. This is stolen art. Sorry, guy. Andy Kehoe is his name. I give him credit. It's in the book. But it's without permission. So, yeah, cease and desist is probably going to come my way. But again, I think we can work together on it. I think, like, if I ever do get big, then I, again, would happily compensate him for whatever he would like, because he deserves it. So, the next book. That was, when did this come out? 4 years ago? 5 years ago? 2014, 6 years ago. Jesus. So 6 years later, I wrote this in 1 year, and 6 years later, I wrote the sequel. A bunch of shit happened, though. You know, I won't make excuses for myself, but there was a lot of shit. But I did write the sequel, finally. And I felt bad. There was a time during there that I had kind of, like, started it a long ass time ago. Because I guess I didn't start it 6 years ago, because it took me, like, a year or two after I wrote this to, like, edit it 6 fucking times and get it self-published and, like, get the cover all together and do all this shit and, like, send it to a billion publishers, and that's its own story as well. I did get some positive responses, and the most positive response seemed like it was going to get published. I was very excited, and then they found out that I had self-published it and they backed out, which I still don't understand to this day, but whatever. So my hope is with this next one that I will not self-publish it, and that I will send it out and it will get picked up, and then they'll like it so much that they'll want the prequel anyway. But so I guess I've only been writing the one that I just finished for like 3 or 4 years, but still a long time, a lot longer. And it's not as long of a text either. It's like, I think, oh, that's part of the story. I'll tell you in a minute. So it took me a lot longer. And there was a point in there where I sort of paused. There's always it's like there's a hero's journey in each of these novels, but there's, like, my own hero's journey in writing the novels as well. There's always a pause from the quest. There's always a point where the hero stops and gives up and, like, says no. And I didn't necessarily ever say, like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just, I had this time where I had paused for so long that when I tried to come back to it, like, in my mind and my heart, I did not feel, like, a connection there. And I was kind of like, fuck, it left. Like, that inspiration or that muse or, like, Cernunnos or whatever, like, took the shit and ran to, like, the next author. which would be fair. If you're not, working on it to birth it, then why should it stick with you? So I kind of like thought that it was over. But when I kind of like calmed the fuck down and like actually sat with it for a while again one day, it had never gone anywhere. It was just sitting there waiting. So I had the same thing. I'd sit down. I wouldn't know what was going to happen next. You'd have like a trillion billion ideas of what like might happen. But when I'd sit down to like get that visual, like I had got with the last book, it'd always take me somewhere that I did not expect. And so, yeah, this book then also started coming out, and it's done. And I just finished it a few days ago, and I finished it, and I was like, it was weird because I had been working on it over all these years, and sometimes I'd go months without even touching it, and then all of a sudden I'd work on it for like 4 days in a row and get a chapter or two out, and then I wouldn't touch it for months. But this last like week, it's like we went into Aries or something. I'm so fucking bad at remembering this shit. Whatever like phase we went into, all of a sudden I was like, I gotta get shit done. And I was just like gung-ho, like so much energy. And so I just sat down and like for days in a row, I was just like writing all day long. And so like not most of it, but like a good chunk of it just came out in this past week or so. And it was done, and I looked at the fucking page. It's like, I can't even express to you this fucking feeling when I look at the page and the page number, the last page, when the last word is written, drumroll, 333 pages. It's 333 pages. I couldn't fucking write a book that was 333 pages if you asked me to. I would never be able to plan that. So I like blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck? And then how many chapters is it? It's 33 chapters. It's fucking 33 chapters and 333 pages. So, like, I hope that you're as weirded out by that as I am. Because, like, I know, again, that I could never convince anyone that I didn't know who Synchronicities was when I wrote this book. And that I didn't plan it. And that it was 33 chapters, both of them, both books, and 333 pages. And I called the 33 chapter thing this time. Like, when I started, I was like, I bet this fucking book finds a way to be 33 chapters. I just bet it does. And it did. So, what the fuck ever. So, like, tripping me out. But I'm like, in this, you're like celebrating. I'm like, I finished the book. Woo, like, it's finally done. Oh, yeah. And then I'm also like, what the fuck is this thing? So, that's weird enough. Then, I hope you guys can understand how fucking weird this is. Just like this image was like, popped up as soon as I was done and was like, on the image from your fucking book, weirdo. Like, that was weird. Same fucking thing. I'm not looking for this shit. I just like am sitting on Facebook scrolling like I would normally at any random time where I'm like wasting time for no reason. And this image pops up. Why isn't it popping up? Oh, there we go. This fucking image. I feel like I'm like gonna go insane. So this image is amazing. This is from Robert Edward Grant, who I desperately want to come on Rogue Ways, and I'm hoping that he will someday. And if you can see this, like the background is this perfect flower of life that he's created. He's kind of like a geometric genius and artist. So he's got the flower of life in the background. And then he's got this sort of geometric representation of all the chakras, or the sort of dimensions of being, or however you want to think of that. So this is one. There's just one line. We've got just two lines, three is three lines, four is four lines, five is five, and we got the polygons all the way up to eight, to the eighth chakra, and they are all colored as the chakras would be colored. So it's just it's a geometric representation of our chakras and sort of being. And in the center here, you can see is what I would call the middle path. This is like your sort of energetic portal in your body in the middle of all of the chakras. And you can also see it makes a 6 and a 9 because he's got the Gemini symbol there, which is the perfect symbol for the middle path, because it's that duality made into one, like the number 3, like we were talking about. So I'm like looking at this and tripping the fuck out on how cool it is. And then also, what's this in the background here? That's what we would call the Sri Yantra. So somebody has combined the flower of life with the Sri Yantra here in this way. They can't, that is the book. If the book could be an image, if both books together could be one image, that's it. And you won't know what I mean unless you read the books. No, I'm not controlled by the elite. If I'm controlled by anything, it's by the fucking spirit of like the muse or like the, inspiration of this idea that wanted to come be born. Because I didn't make any of this up. This all just came to me. And I don't think that you can even say that that's being controlled, because I have a very tidy spiritual space and really good boundaries. And so if this thing is coming to me, it's coming through my highest self to me, and I'm just a conduit for it. And that's how I view my spiritual work in general. So it makes sense to me that this is just part of my spiritual work on the planet, is to write these books for whatever they're worth to someone, which I'm guessing they're worth something to someone. But that Sri Yantra mixed with the flower of life, both centered on top of each other, is like an integral part of the plot of the book, which I can't even explain because it doesn't exist. There's not, if you go search for Sri Yantra and flower of life together, it's not a thing. It's not like people have been putting these two symbols together, or whatever. Like, that doesn't happen, but it happened in my book, and I was like, that's weird. Okay, like, I'll just roll with it. I know what it means to me, and I know why it would happen in this book. Like, it makes sense to me in the plot, but I don't know why someone else would draw this. I can't explain that to you. I have no idea why anyone else would choose the flower of life and the Sri Yantra to put on top of each other and to mix that with this sort of progression of states of being that are all unified in this middle path. I mean, this is like everything in one image that someone else drew it. Again, like another artist had the same shit that I was like channeling into fucking words and from conception to words in this book, and they did it visually. So it's another person that I'm like, please talk to me. Like, please, let's talk about this fucking crazy shit. This is crazy. He hasn't responded. I feel like, given the other guy never responding, like, maybe he's never going to respond. And that kills me. I'm not going to use that as my cover. Don't worry. That's just not a very cool cover. No offense to anybody. It's a fucking amazing piece of art that, like, speaks deeply to my soul and is, like, fucking tripping me out that it exists at all and that I saw it right when I finished the book. But fuck. So yeah, I don't know. There's that story. That's the crazy fucking truth. And I hope to bring you Robert Edward Grant someday. He's like, but if not, go check him out. Like, he's awesome. His work is great. I feel like he's just like a genius. He's channeling some shit too. And it's beautiful shit. So fuck that fucking, like, I'm like, okay, like, here's 333 pages and 33 chapters of a book with concepts that I've like never heard before, and then some other artist again channeled in his being, and la la la, and you start to just be like, I don't know, is this all just a fucking crazy dream? I'm gonna like wake up from someday and be like, whoa, what a trip. But I think it's real. Like, I think we're here. I just want to finish off the weirdness of that time. So like, I finished the book, then I saw this image, and I like lost my mind about how fucking crazy and how no one can understand how crazy it is because no one's read the book but me. But hopefully you get a little glimpse of it now, and maybe you'll read both books someday, and then you'll be like, what the fuck? And it'll like all like really hit you more than it might be now hitting you. And then I go to sleep. I have pretty powerful dreams. I have, whatever you want to call it. I think I'm like a dream traveler. I sometimes have prophetic dreams. I have visions and dreams sometimes. And so I have what I call power dreams, and I don't know what other people call them, but that's what I call them. And then I have regular dreams like anyone that are just like random kind of noise and scenarios or fears or whatever. But I have some power dreams, and that night, my first night after finishing the book, I had a dream. And one of the points in it that I'm going to share with you is that there was a single white rose. White is not a color I get very often in my dreams, but white is a color that I've had in connection with Cernunnos and other power dreams. So I go to sleep that night, I have this single white rose, which is very meaningful. And I notice it and I write it down in my dream journal and I like meditate on it and stuff and I get some good juju from that or whatever. And then the next night I go to sleep and I have a dream and there's a white owl in the dream. Again, white is a pretty rare color for me, at least, having dreams. So I notice it again. I'm like, whoa. And an owl is pretty powerful. And again, there's like, an owl is like the number 33. There's people who are like, oh, Illuminati and bullshit. But like, it's just a number. It can mean what, it holds its own meaning and intrinsic value, whether you're using it for good or for evil. The same is true of owls. You can think about aliens and like Moloch and all this shit. Or you can remember that the owl is actually a real creature and that it does actually have its own representations of things. And that was very significant as well. And then at this point, I'm like, there's going to be a third dream. They always come in threes, and they're always connected, and they always belong together, but it like, whatever. And so I know that the next night there's going to be another dream. And on the third night, it's a dream of a white snake eating its own tail. So like the series of these symbols and their color and their meaning to me is even more like fucked up than I could explain. I would need like a whole other episode just to explain like the fucking dreams and what they mean. But just the point is that like I finished the book, then saw that image, then had these three dreams. And then that third night that I had the third dream was the new moon. And so I'm just going to leave you with that as a synchronicity that I can't yet explain to you how it all, I know how it all, what it all means and how it all ties together, but I just wanted you to, like, I felt like that was the end of the story, that even though I can't yet explain it to you, you could cogitate upon and possibly meditate upon and understand how fucking crazy this, like, 4 days was in my life. And so that's the story of finishing the sequel to Sine Curve of Aeons, and now I'll finally tell you the title. It's called Earth, A Trough in Time. So the Sine Curve of Aeons is the prequel to Earth, A Trough in Time. And it takes place right now in our modern world. And so that will not be available to you anytime soon for reading, but this is available to you now for reading. Again, you can get it on Amazon or from me through PayPal for $15, which is cheaper than Amazon, and you get a little note from me. But you can get the audiobook to Sine Curve if you're a Subscribestar subscriber at higher than the $1 level. The $1 level is rad. I love you if you want to do that. That's so supportive and awesome. But to get the content from the site, you actually have to go to the next higher level or above. So you can get the audiobook to Sign, and I just finished recording the 17th chapter, I think, out of 33. So you already have like a good chunk to listen to if you go subscribe. And soon you'll have all of them. And so you can listen to the whole book. And then I'm going to start recording Earth, A Trough in Time, the sequel. And so even though you won't be able to read it, you will be able to listen to it on Subscribestar if you want to access it that way. When I am done recording all of those, then I will offer them for sale as a package of all of them in one. If you just want to like download it and own it and listen to it all together, that will be coming as well. This was not intended to be a advertisement for my books. This is just the story of the books. I just want to share with people like how fucking crazy it is. Because I think like I used to hear authors talk about the weirdest shit and they'd be like, oh, my characters are like real and I like sit down and I like have a conversation with them and I like get to the point where sometimes I think I see them in real life and I'm like, seriously, authors are schizophrenic. Like there's something fucking wrong with them. But now I'm like, dude, I kind of get it. Like the shit is real. It happened somewhere to someone and it just came to me and I was like allowed to like channel it and birth it or whatever. But it's fucking weird. So I wanted to share that crazy tale. Synchronicities sometimes go like so deeply and like shock me to my core. And no matter how many I have, when I have like a big one like this, that's just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you know, at the very least, all I can say is that that I'm on the right path. You know, whatever that means is like I'm like headed the right way. Because this is like a wink from the universe or like a nod. It's like, yep, you're going the right way. You're getting it or whatever. But what Michael Wan and I were talking about on the video that you, again, can get on Subscribestar if you want to go watch it, had more to do with his recent episode, what he talked about on Freeman, because he was on Freeman Fly, and on THC again this week, both in 1 week. So you can go listen and get kind of more of his ideas about this part of the story, but this idea that we're sort of like energetically creating like a network, or sort of mapping out pathways in like the etheric or the like the noosphere, or the, however you want to think about that, in like the spiritual realm, or like in between the spiritual realm and this realm, and that we're creating those sort of, or reinforcing those, or maybe finding them to begin with, or whatever. And then this is all sort of tied in with these significant stories of like major synchronicities and sort of where they lead us in life. And I have a sort of a teacher of mine, and we talk about and practice in our dream states, sort of mapping out those same pathways. If you notice, if you're a dreamer, you have sort of dreamscapes that you go to over and over again. But if you get kind of more lucid or aware in your dreams, you also notice that they all relate to each other somehow, and there's some that are near to others and others that are farther away, and there's pathways between them. And so it's the same sort of work, I feel like, that I'm doing in the dream world with that teacher as we're doing here in this world, but like with our spiritual self. And that's as best as I can explain it right now, but I think these things have something to do with that. And I think these synchronicities, that's why they sort of like strike us so deeply and are so meaningful. And one of the frustrating things about them is that you can never really explain to someone else like how fucking weird and deep it was. You know, like I just tried to explain to you by telling you that whole story. And probably like some of you are like, I don't know, okay. And probably others are like, whoa. And like, you like can hope that someone else might get it, but really it's like only for you, and it only means something to you. And my hope is that in people reading and listening to the book, that it means something to them too, and then it makes an even bigger network, and that we're even more capable and effective at the various levels of our being because of that. So I noticed there's some questions. I noticed there's Cody. Cody, what's up, Cody? And Sonia! Hi, Sonia. Sonia's my old friend. She's not old. We've been friends for a long time. Does anybody else pop in here? All right, so I'm going to look now because I just saw some questions. And so now's a good time, if you have questions, to write them here. Again, if you're on Facebook, I don't see your comments, but if you hop over to YouTube or DLive, then I will see your comments. It's not because I don't like you, it's because Facebook doesn't work well with this program. So Sophia Smallstorm updates. Sophia was just on Rogueways just a couple episodes ago, so if you want to go listen to that, that was a pretty cool episode. We talked about kind of like about manifestation, basically, and how you can create your reality pretty easily, actually, if you just spend some little bit of time imagining what you want and putting kind of your emotion into that. And I think she has a method of doing that, and other people have a different method, and there's sort of like the secret, and there's all these ways of doing it, but we just kind of talked about them more of like the concept of that there's this like imagination that we all have, and that it's something very powerful, and that visualization is like a key component to that, but that so is emotion, and fear can be detracting from that. It'll create too, but it'll create the opposite thing you want. So we kind of talked about that. So if you want to go listen to that, that was a fun episode. Chris, you are so fucking amazing, and you rock. Thank you. The artwork in my room. Yeah, this is my boyfriend's art. There's a really old piece that he wants to add some, where am I going? We're here. He wants to add some sort of electronic chaos down here and kind of spruce it up and make it newer, because it's a cool piece, but he doesn't feel quite done with it. And I totally get, like, as an artist, that you kind of can like start something and then drop it for like years and then come back to it, because I just talked about that. So I think we all do that. This piece behind me is pretty rad. It's reversible. So you can kind of go either way with it. He likes to do a lot of strange creations that are often have some like anatomy to them, and often have a distorted sort of view. And there's something he just started today, which is going to be, it's a tree of some kind, but we'll see what it turns into as he goes. I don't make art. I do actually paint I painted once. I have a painting But I do more writing and collaging and other kinds of art. So that's his work. And you can go to johnnylarson.com and see more of his art and his music, which is at the beginning and end of every show. Oh, thank you. You guys are so nice. Yes, to be clear, spirits do not channel through me. I have, again, very good spiritual boundaries. If anything, the Holy Spirit is the best way to describe it. If you want to call it like maybe the collective consciousness, you could call it, or what I kind of think, and not that this is different from the Holy Spirit or the collective consciousness, but I kind of feel like this story and these concepts are archetypal, they're emotional, and they have to do with humanity and our progress, and both back in time and forward in time, which you'll understand if you read the book, or maybe it already resonates with you, and that we have to sort of heal our past, our traumatic past, collectively, in order to heal that trauma and in order to make our future bright and healthy. And so I think these things that come through these books are a way of processing that trauma that's from, long ago, for all of us, for all of humanity, and bringing it kind of back into our consciousness, because you can't heal something if you're not conscious of it. If you're not looking at it directly and intentionally going through it, with the purpose of healing, then you're not going to heal it. And that's how it works with us here and now in our psyches. And that's how it works collectively. And so that is the Holy Spirit to me, and that is inspiration, and that is from the collective unconscious, or all these, whatever, however you want to describe those things. I think it's the same process. It's the same, different ways of describing the same thing. So no, definitely don't let spirits ever, in my opinion, it's not cool to let spirits come into you or channel through you. They can take care of themselves. They don't need you. And if they try to tell you they need you, then they're dirty, filthy liars, and you should not trust them. So yeah, not that. Yes, they do want to use our bodies parasitically. And I say, for fuck's sake, don't let them. Again, they can take care of themselves, and they can fuck right off. Babylon equals the snake swallowing its own head. I mean, maybe, but really the snake swallowing its tail just means infinity. So in that dream, all it meant is all time as one. Again, things are very subjective, especially in dream world, and especially with anything etheric or sort of spiritual. There's a lens, just like I was saying. Cernunnos doesn't have wolf associated with him anywhere, but in my relationship with him, he always has wolf associated with him somehow. And so that's just my lens. Whatever I'm getting from him, whatever that energy is, feels like wolf to me. So same with that dream that I had with the white snake eating its tail. It had nothing to do with Babylon or society or anything that humans could even construct. It had to do with the eternity of all time, all connected as one thing. So I could go on, but just so you know, no, it had nothing to do with the white race. Again, it's just white as a color is literally just means purity, purity, innocence. It was a lot of things, but part of it was knowing that this intention had manifested in a way that was pure and this plain. So more than anything else, it had nothing to do with the white race or white people. And again, the owl could be, you can look at an owl and you can see the Illuminati shit and Moloch shit. That's not what this owl was. Owls are also just owls sometimes, and owls often mean wisdom and seeing through a dark time. You can see at night perfectly, or being able to move through chaos and occlusion easily and without being detected. And that's not a bad thing sometimes. So, when do you start getting an audiobook? So like I said, I'm chapter 17 on Sine Curve, the prequel, the first book, and there's 33 chapters, so I'm a little bit over halfway done recording that, and I hope to finish in the next few days while I'm on this like high energy, like get shit done kick while we're in Aries or whatever we're in right now. Well, I've got that energy, and so I should be starting on the new book audio recording like pretty soon after that. So it's coming. And what's up, Jeff? Nice to see you. What's up, Courtney? You made it. This is what witches are channeling for power. I don't know. I just addressed that, I think. So maybe that was before I addressed that. No, this wasn't a snake literally like cannibalizing itself. It was just again, any symbol can be all kinds of things. So when you're experiencing a symbol, you have to ask yourself, like, what is it in relationship to? What was the feeling when I saw it? And like, what's it associated with? What's the context of it? Because all of that matters. And anybody who dreams knows you can have, like anything in a dream, and it can mean all kinds of things. Like, I've had dreams before where there's something that should be terrifying, like a zombie or whatever, but it's just like not terrifying because it's more like a mannequin in that instance, and I can just like chop its head off. And then there could be another dream where it is scary and like coming after you, and those are the same thing, but they're two totally different meanings and totally different relationships. So it's really kind of low level to think that one thing always means this thing. It's just not true. And that if you think about it hard enough, that that's not true. So you really do have to be discerning, just like Jesus says, and look at each thing for itself. And just like that pastor had said, at the beginning of the story, like, you look at something and you assume it's evil and you discount it, you're kind of missing the point. It could be evil. It could be really, really good. And you don't necessarily know if you're just judging it and just acting out of just reactionary sort of space. You're going to miss a lot if you do that. And especially projecting it onto other people is not helpful, right? Judge not, lest you be judged. It's really not your place. You can't judge. You don't know enough to judge. You don't even know enough to judge yourself. You can't judge another person. So you really can't just like, oh, this is what it means, period. You can. It's just not going to be helpful, and it's not going to be true. So you got to move past that and become more discerning and ask more questions, I think. Snakes can be very deceptive in symbolism, but definitely. And there's a lot of that in biblical, and there's a reason for that, and that is a good thing to pay attention to. Snakes don't always mean deception. Owls don't create dark. Owls are just birds. Okay. I don't know, Chris, why it's hard for people to deal with infinity. Maybe that is why infinity is a lot to deal with. All right, I think I got all the questions so far, but there's still some people hanging out. So if you have more questions or things to say or ideas or whatever, then now is the time. We're just coming out of the new moon now, so we're growing in energy. Yes, corporations can create darkness. You could create darkness. You're a powerful being. Jeff could create darkness. Anybody can. Anything with the ability to have intention can create darkness. Some corporations might be good. There's like B corporations. Their whole goal is to improve the world and not make money. The fiduciary duty is not part of their covenant, or however you want to call it. So even that is like, you can't just say corporations are bad. Again, you can. You'd be wrong. It's not truthful. Some, you might even say most, are evil as fuck. Some are good. It's just the way it is. It's the same with witches. There's going to be fucked up ass witches that are crazy and trying to work all kinds of madness in the world. There's going to be some that are beautiful, beautiful people like Chris. And so it's pretty ignorant to think that anything is all one thing. Even angels, there's good and bad, fallen and not. So I mean, it really is ignorant. It's a place of low thinking and lack of experience, I think, to say something like that. What's up, Mark? Nice to see you here. Have you thought about watching the Democratic Circus tonight? Is there a Democratic Circus again tonight? Dude, I feel like they have a debate like every fucking day now. It's crazy. And it's always sad to watch. Whew, those people. I always am on the side of like, this is all just like a fucking staged show for our division, really, and to like take our attention and steal our emotion or whatever. But every once in a while I'm like, what if it's not? Because I hate to just like land on this is the truth and that's the end of the story. I like to always like keep questioning periodically anything that I kind of hold as a truth. And so I'm like, what if it's not? What if these people are dead serious? And then that's like even scarier, because those are the best, like fucking 12 people that now then is down to like 6 people. It's going to be down to like 2 people soon. Those are the best people they could come up with to fucking be like the ruler of an entire country. Like, shit's gone terribly wrong if that's true. I'm kind of more comfortable with the idea that it's all just a show and that these people are just fucking hired lifetime actors and that this is just the shit that they're pretending is true. It's fucking ridiculous. These people are ridiculous. I could go on, but I won't. What's up, Mateo? Nice to see you here. They are their best corporate whores. They really are. If you could get to that point and not be a corporate whore and not be bought out and be genuine, like, I'm pretty sure they would find the best way to kill you. It seemed to me, and again, I could be wrong about anything, it seemed to me last time, maybe it wasn't true, but it seemed to me that Bernie was actually pretty legit. Like, that he was like a serious, perhaps a useful idiot up until that point. But like a legitimate, like, he believed in what he was saying and he actually had this like groundswell of support. And the reason it seemed that way is because it was not televised. In fact, it was like deep into the process before the news even admitted he existed, even though his rallies were selling out like entire fucking like football stadiums or whatever without media attention, which is even crazier. And they were just still ignoring it. They were still pretending like he didn't even exist. And finally they had to admit he existed because like enough people like knew that he did and could have seen through their whole charade if they didn't. And so then they finally admitted he was real, but then they were still like, well, it has to be Hillary. It's Hillary or nothing. And they pulled all that bullshit at the fucking convention, and he shows up with a black eye. And you can look into the black eye thing. It's like a fucking thing. Like, it's weird. Shows up with a black eye. And then all of a sudden he's pretty weird, and he did things he said he would never do, like concede to Hillary and say that people should vote for Hillary. So that was weird. He's acting scared, his eye is black, and all of a sudden he's changed his tune. And now here he is in this election saying shit he's never said his whole life. Like that we should have wide open borders and just let anybody who wants to come into the country in a country. He never said that. He was in fact for immigration reform or whatever, for having an immigration process, which is the opposite of open borders. So it's pretty weird. So I kind of wonder, like, if he was real. Seems like he was. And then he got not killed, but controlled. And now he's a little controlled puppet. Which is, like, sad and scary for him, because if there's something they can do to you that is able to make you change, like, the core of who you are, then that's kind of terrifying. So, I don't know. What else do we got here? Yes, I do think it's the show to re-elect Trump. I think that that's why they're making the Democratic sides just so fucking hopeless. And I think it's sad to watch, like, the people who are really caught up in it and, like, trying to figure out, like, who they're going to vote for and who do they have to support on the Democratic side to, like, get rid of Trump. And then them watching this and being like, really? We have to choose between a full-on fucking socialist and a billionaire? Like, the two most opposite things? Those are our choices in one party somehow? And that would, like, how much stress that's causing people and how much emotion they have caught up in it, like, that is truly, truly sad. And it is just going to re-elect Trump. I mean, if it were real, it would be re-electing Trump. But since they've already decided they want Trump in for another 4 years, this is just the show that makes you able to swallow the lie that he wins again or whatever the fuck. Oh gosh, you guys, just be nice to each other. Nobody in this chat is possessed by demons right now. Like, Jesus is a powerful force, and you can pray to him if you want, and he will absolutely get rid of demons and demonic energies, and that is the truth in my experience. But you also don't need to, like, shove that down people's throats or force them to, like, be down with it or use it or call them demonic or anything like that. I don't think that the person in the chat is calling anyone that. I think they're just very strong feeling about their beliefs, and that's okay. But just remember that you don't have to shove anyone's your beliefs down anyone's throats, and everybody can be where they're at, and that's a beautiful thing. What's up, Lacey Hinshaw? How's it going? Black eye guy. Oh, that was Bernie Sanders. We were talking about Bernie Sanders. La la la. Sororities. Use what? Faking injury to harness sympathy. Oh yeah, dude, like Harvey Weinstein. Like all of a sudden he's like dying and has a fucking like walker, and I'm like, what? Like you just like fell apart physically because of this trial or something? Like you're supposed to try to make us feel bad for you. I'm positive it's just like an act. But again, part of me is like, or did they take away his adrenochrome? Like, are they like choosing to like make him suffer for some reason like that we don't understand in their little fucking club or whatever? Could be both. Yes. The more adrenochrome. I think so, maybe. Like, he looks pretty trashy. He looks pretty fucked up. I agree, Cody. We do have free will, and we are able to channel the highest good in any given moment or the deepest darkness in every given moment, and you always have a choice. You always have a choice. Even when they want to make it seem like you have no choice. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say. If you guys don't have any questions, that was my crazy story about writing my book. So the kind of scary part is that now I'm going to, after I record the audiobook, after I finish the audiobook for Sign, and then move into the audiobook for Earth, A Trough in Time, the sequel, and I get done with that, and then I'm going to do my publisher thing, like resubmit to all these places or whatever, and that takes some time and some effort, and then I'm going to write the third book in the trilogy, and then it's going to be over, and I don't know what happens in that story at all. So that's going to be crazy and interesting and awesome also, and I have to like find a place where I don't like expect the same shit. I'm like, is it going to be 33 fucking chapters again? Probably, but like I shouldn't expect that, because then I'm like putting expectations on it. I don't want to limit it in any way, you know. I want it to be what it needs to be for myself and for anyone else who might read it and for the world. And so I have to like find a place where I'm like not expecting that, or I'm not expecting like weird artwork to just pop up and be like fucking crazy synchronous with with what's in the book, like because I don't want to limit it. So I have to figure that out. But maybe by the time that I've like recorded all this and submitted to publishers and done all this other shit, maybe by then I'll kind of have washed out this sort of overwhelming feeling. But I can't teach you how to Dougie, but I can teach you how to nay-nay. That's the answer to that question. I hope Che's watching right now, because he'll laugh and laugh and laugh. He's taking the fall to cover up the pedophilic revelations. I do think that's part of it. I think he's like the sacrificial lamb, and he probably gets some sort of what they imagine to be like steep rewards for doing that. Probably. Any advice on becoming lucid during dreaming? Yes. The best, there's going to be a combination of things, right? And one of them is get good sleep. Have a dark room. Make sure you don't have distractions while you're sleeping. Make sure you don't drink water right before you go to bed, so you're not going to like wake up to pee. Make sure you're comfortable in all these things and you feel safe and stuff, and all that stuff you would normally do, and like, you know, have good nutrition and not a lot of caffeine and not a lot of sugar, so you're not just like crashing into your bed at night, and all of that is good. And another aspect of that is starting to dream journal. If you don't do it yet, it's like the easiest way to make your dreams more obvious and profound to you, or rather just that you remember them, basically. And the hardest part about that for me is that even if you do wake up in the night to pee, you also have to write down dreams then, and that kind of sucks because you just want to go like right back to bed. But you shouldn't. If you're going to do a dream journal, you should be as committed as possible and write down every single dream every single time you wake up in as much detail as you can remember. And this trains you to start remembering, because we all know that when you wake up, you remember your dreams for a moment and then they just dissolve And like maybe something will happen during the day that you're like, oh yeah, there was a pig in the dream or whatever. But like in general, it's just kind of like gone from that point. So if you don't write it down pretty quickly, it's gone. So you want to get in that habit, and it's really good. You can keep a literal like pad of paper and a pen next to your bed, and that's probably the best. And if you're horrible like me, you do it on your phone and you have the electronic light in your face in the middle of the night or whatever. And that's not the best way to do it, but it's the way that I actually will do it. So it's what I do. So all of that is sort of the pre-recommendation. But if you want to become lucid in your dreams, there's a couple ways that work for me really, really well. And so I'll just share those 2 ways. They're very, very easy and anybody can do them. The first way is, and this is the most effective for me, is that you, throughout the day, throughout every single day, you just ask yourself if you're dreaming. It's just super simple. You just try to do it like 50 times a day if you can. And literally by like the second or third day, it's going to work. But just say, am I dreaming? And you don't just do it as like a habit. Like you don't just do it not thinking. You do it as like a check-in with this moment right here, right now. Am I dreaming? Okay, no, I'm not. And then like an hour, half an hour or whatever. Am I dreaming? Okay, no, I'm not. Like you actually have to take a minute to like be in your body when you answer the question to like access this information. And you're going to say no over and over and over again. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm awake. I'm awake. And then at some point you're going to ask yourself that question and the answer is going to be, yes, I am dreaming. And that's the coolest fucking point, because now you're lucid in your dream. And the hardest part about being lucid in a dream is not waking up instantly because you're like, I'm so excited, I'm lucid in my dream. And then all of a sudden you're waking like, fuck, I was there. So that really is the hardest part about lucid dreaming, is not getting so excited that you leave the dream or so scared that you leave the dream or whatever your emotional response is. You have to be like, am I dreaming? Yes, I am. Oh, it's totally normal. Everything's calm. Like, and just let go of that excitement that you feel. It's like that story about awakening or whatever. And like, people are like meditating for years and years and years or whatever to be like, oh, to get to awakening. And then they finally get to like the moment of like self-awakening but they're so excited about it that it like sends them back or whatever. It's like the same thing. So you gotta perhaps practice the feeling of what it would feel like to realize you're lucid in a dream, and practice being like, that's totally fine. This is where I belong. Everything's cool. That works really, really well. So that's what I would suggest more than anything. And a different version of that, which is just as effective, but actually more effective on other levels, not just the lucid dreaming level, is something that's called SOL. And it's not shit out of luck. It's subject, object, location. And the subject is who you really are. And if you've done any deep meditation before, then you know that who you really are is not in this body, in this vessel or whatever, and that this is consciousness and these thoughts that you hear are not actually you. This is all part of like the construct that you use to interact with this realm. And if you've experienced that like you behind the you, that fucking shit that's like blows your mind, like that's the subject. The subject is like the real you that's behind all of this, almost like watching it like almost like a detached dream or whatever. So that's the subject. So, and then the object is this you, like your thoughts and your body and your sensations, all of your sensory data, all of that. That's the object. And the location is here now, but the location more specifically is like which aspect of reality are you in, because there's this one, the physical reality, and then there's all the others, like the astral world and the dreaming world and, the Akashic records or whatever. There's like all these different, and I'm not trying to pretend like I know them all. I'm just saying that there's a lot. So it's the same sort of thing where you're kind of checking in and being like, where am I? And like, what state of consciousness am I in? Except you're doing it a little bit more specifically. You're like reminding yourself, you're like, okay, I'm actually this thing behind all of this. I'm like this consciousness that's deeper than my thoughts. And then this thing here is just like the thing I'm working through and like gathering data through or whatever, we're transferring information through. And my location right now, okay, this is this 3-dimensional physical earth. That's where I am right now. So it's a more detailed check-in with yourself. And that will also, if you do it enough, transfer into any other realm, whether you're dreaming or not, to bring you into like full awareness of like, oh, I'm here now. which is amazing in many ways. So that one's even better, but it's like a little bit harder, especially if you've never experienced the you behind the you or whatever, because then you only kind of like get that it exists, but you've never like felt it or experienced it, so it's harder to conceptualize. So whichever of those sounds better, they'll both work for lucid dreaming. But again, I think the second one is, I don't even want to say better. There's no like judgment involved. I just think it can access more skills besides just lucid dreaming if you practice that one. So that's a cool one too. And then there's the hand thing, right? That if you practice looking at your hands multiple times throughout this, it's kind of the same thing. Practice looking at your hands multiple times a day and just noticing them. That apparently then you'll do that. And I've never done this one, but I've just heard of it. And I have looked at my hands in a dream. So like, I can see how it could like spark your awareness of like, oh yeah, this is a dream. So yeah, that's my answer about lucid dreams. You're welcome for that answer. Lucid dreamed a handful of times and have vivid dreams on the regular, but want to go deeper. Totally. Yeah. I'm like, it's hard for me because I feel like I can only practice like one thing at a time. And I'm either practicing like manifestation or like artistic and like channeling sort of like writing creative pursuits or, you know, dreaming stuff. And I can't like focus on any one of them. I could, if I never like had to do anything else, I could. But it seems like it's just like hard to do all of them at once. Maybe that's when you like achieve mastery. You can do all of them at once. I looked at my hands in a dream and I had a 3-foot-long penis. that has to be incredibly meaningful. You're like super powerful in the material world at that moment. That's what that meant. That's awesome. What's up, DBE Media? I know who you really are. I don't know if I'm supposed to say your name, but hi. Stretch your finger. Does that work? Stretch your finger? Probably. I think honestly, anything that you decide, this is kind of my philosophy about all of life, anything that you decide and create and design and start practicing with the intention of it working is gonna work. You know, like I'll seriously just like make up meditation sometimes where I'm like, oh, I'm like freaking out. So, you know, my left hand is my hand where I draw in energy. I'm going to draw in green calming energy from the earth. And I breathe it in and I imagine it like coming into my body and pushing out any like red, angry energy or agitated energy out of my right hand, which is the hand in which I give things, and I give it back to the earth and it grounds it. And like that works. I just made that up, right? But like you can make up anything and it could work because you decided to make it work. Can everyone... Wolfgang Halbig and Rebecca Carnes both got arrested recently. Oh, that sucks. Hope they're okay. What's on deck for Rogue Ways? Dude, it's weird. I had shit lined up for like 2 months out for a while, and now I just like stopped the other day and was like, I got nothing. I don't. I have some people who I haven't like nailed down yet to a sort of specific date, but they're coming up. So, I mean, hopefully, but I don't like to say it until I know for sure. But obviously Joe Atwill, because that's who was supposed to be tonight. Definitely gonna have Gary Wayne on again. I'm like slightly obsessed, but I want to read way more of his book before he comes back. So I'll have like even more better questions to ask him. And hopefully you guys won't get like sick of us talking about the Bible. Those are my like favorite. I love that shit so much. So, I have Indra Rinsler coming on. You can go look him up if you want. He's super awesome dude. He spends a lot of his time in India. He's a Vedic astrologer. So that's going to be really exciting. I ran into him at a spiritual expo, which I hate those things, but I found myself at one, and it was a crazy set of experiences. I could just like do another episode like just on that experience, and so maybe I'll do that at some point. But I met him there and he is super cool, and so he is coming on soon. And yeah, I think that's all I have lined up as far as guests go. I like to try to get back on some of my guests who haven't been on in a while, so I really want Freeman to come back on soon, so I'm going to see if he will do that. And I want to get back on Oh my god, it just was in my head and it's gone. People. And my homie Brett is going to line up some shit soon too, I hear, through the grapevine. So that'll be cool to see who he gets. He gets some really fun guests that I had never, like, knew of before. So we're a good team. James Tracy. Yeah, a lot of people think James Tracy is, like, controlled opposition or whatever. And I don't know, because he seems pretty censored. And I know you would make someone seem censored if they were your sort of mouthpiece or whatever. But I think he might be legit. I don't know what he would be doing that would be negative, because it seems like he's just interested in critical thinking and the truth, but what do I know? Drew. Yes, it's Drew. Hi, Drew. For requesting the removal for smart meter. Oh, really? They arrested her for that? Or, like, that's just what made them target her, I'm guessing, and there was actually other reasons that they wanted her, that what they finally got her for. That's scary, because, like, you should be able to get rid of your smart meter. Those things are terrifying, and especially seeing, like, whole banks of them on an apartment building and thinking of, like, the beds that are on the other side of that wall just, like, getting, like, fucking pulsed, like, the whole, ugh, like, it makes me feel sick. Sorry, I'm, like, catching up on your guys' chat, but definitely keep adding questions if you have questions. Oh, you guys, stop fighting. Be friends. Just ignore each other. If this were a classroom, you'd have timeouts. Take a timeout. All right, maybe that's it. Maybe we're coming to a close here. You guys are awesome as always. It's super fun to chat with you. I have run out of things to say and questions to answer from the chat, so I'm going to call it a night, but I always appreciate it, especially because, like I said, oh, what's up, Gordon? It's okay that you're late. You missed a fucking rad story, though. You may have to go back and re-listen. But, what was I saying? Oh, it's really nice for me to be able to explain that whole story at one time and hope that some people actually connected with it, because it's that thing about synchronicities that, like, it sucks to feel like no one will ever really, like, get it. It's like I just want someone to get it. So thank you for listening to that. I hope that it was as helpful for you as it was for me. And yeah, all right, so I will be back on Thursday, possibly with Joe Atwill. I don't know, we haven't rescheduled yet, and possibly with some other people, and possibly with another one of my crazy stories for you, or best of Rogue Ways rerun. You'll have to just wait and see, because I don't even know yet. So I really want to emphasize that idea that I sort of reiterated a couple times, which is that I have very good spiritual boundaries, and so should you. And so whatever it is that is coming through to be birthed onto this plane has had to first pass through all of those levels of scrutiny and protection in order to even come into my realm of being and be birthed through these books. So you don't have to take my word for that, but you know, I always encourage good spiritual boundaries for everyone, and I just want to use that as a reminder to say that there's no object or symbol or color or number that is inherently evil. There is only intention and consciousness can create evil, and so any intention and consciousness can use any object or tool or symbol or color or number for any purpose. So just like that pastor had warned us, you don't judge something based on how it looks or how you've trained yourself to see it. You judge something by its fruits, and you judge something by how you can either kind of like use it and be in conjunction with it to create the highest good of yourself and for everyone else that exists, or not. So don't discount anything, and just use your discernment. And you know, if you have good spiritual boundaries and good spiritual allies, then there's nothing that can ever harm you anyway. And like I said, you know, I kicked that one entity out, and it seems as though that entity was actually good, but because it's a good entity, it doesn't hold that against me, and it would never hold it against you. So if you're ever in doubt, just kick the shit out. Say, bye-bye, motherfucker. This is your space, and you own it. So just some reminders of the lessons and the practices that will help you kind of navigate through this crazy, crazy world. But it's a beautiful world. And until you master your spiritual boundaries and create your life exactly as you want it to be for the highest good of yourself and all living creatures, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak, while the tongue beats a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God is booed. It's sorcery to recreate a God forgery. Does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just hear me flow like the eye of Horus Penio. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me, bro?
Sculpted from the ether, the material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional three ain't beating me on top of the fourth. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squab with a sword. Forged with Yggdrasil, branched out. Try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter, let they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they over understand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoarding dumber, kosher, wicked hands. Putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals. Artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo. Bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves. Bypassing maggots, they stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets. Moloch living lavish, off the backs of the savage. Them clasped hands at the Sabbath. Smack of energy damage, they done twisted the tongues. But nanotech in the lungs, the awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking
run.